Good morning, Macomb. And this is the Hot Seat. I'm Connor Fredlin. We are usually here at around 4 p.m. on Fridays, but now we're in the morning. Alongside Kyle O'Reilly and Max Hess. How you guys doing?
We're doing just mighty fine on this lovely morning.
I'm doing fine. How are you doing on this beautiful Wednesday morning, Connor?
Well, I'm doing great. How was your guys' summer?
It was very, very short-lived. I'll admit that. But good to be on the radio show.
Mostly work, but, a little bit of fun in there, too,
Well, today is going to be a special day for our season number 2 of the Hot Seat morning edition. And we will be in the morning every Wednesday at 7 a.m. bright and early, guys.
Just for you fans.
Kyle has no response to that. That's totally okay. And we got a lot to talk about. Of course, we have to talk about Western sports. There's always a lot going on there. We have to talk about the Major League Baseball situation because it is that time of the year. And very special guest today on the show, Jeff Joniak, play-by-play guy for the Chicago Bears. He will be joining us here to answer some questions. And, of course, there's a lot to talk about in the Chicago Bears world. So, guys, you want to just get it started?
Let's go ahead and get it started.
All right, Cal, tell us a little bit about WIU volleyball.
All right, so we got the volleyball team. They had a 11-night invitational this past weekend, and fair to say, they done mighty well, if I might just say that. So in Game 1, they beat Manhattan 3-2 to take the first game of the 11-night invitational for the Western Illinois Leathernecks. In Game 2, they beat Chicago State 3-0, just a nice clean sweep in Game 2. But Game 3 is where they found their trouble as they lost to Evansville 3-2. That they had a good chance to win in the 5th set, but unfortunately they squandered the lead and lost to Evansville.
And I was on the call for both of those. I did color commentary for the first game and play-by-play for the next two. And a lot happened. It was great for Western Illinois. Last season, if you remember, in 2016, they actually played the Hampton Invitational as well, starting the season 2-1. They always got to a hot start, but they ended losing the season last year, losing the last 14 meetings of the year last year. They didn't make the playoffs. They haven't made the Summit League tournament since 2013. And the women volleyball team really has a lot to do. 2-1, obviously a good start. Coach Richardson has 9 wins on her career in 3 seasons. But she's come in to try to really turn it around for the volleyball team, kind of rebuild. I know you don't usually use that word in college sports, but really try to turn around the organization, and maybe this is the season.
Yeah, you just hope for the best for the volleyball team because last season was a very huge struggle to watch them go through such a low winning season. And now this is a new year, there's new faces on the team, and hopefully they'll turn it around.
Going on a little bit, you got men's soccer. Men's soccer started the season 0-2. They lost to Milwaukee and Green Bay. Not a good start for the men's soccer team, who has a pretty prestigious record here at WIU throughout their history. They've made the tournament numerous times, been the Summit League champion quite a few times, but did not make the tournament last year. Excuse me, they did, but they had a very poor record, under 500. They did just make the Summit League tournament a year ago. But really not the same team that we've seen in the past, but starting 0-2, definitely not a good start.
Yeah, definitely not a good start. But I think, wasn't it last year that they started 0-2, and then they won a couple more games? They didn't win the conference, but they did make the tournament, didn't they? Or was that the women's team?
No, I do believe, I think I was wrong when I said they didn't make it. They did make it last year, but it's definitely a lot riding on this season, wanting to be that dominant force that they've been before. Starting 0-2, like you said, not a good way to start out, obviously.
And they did lose a huge key piece to that team. They did lose a huge piece as he was a senior.
Yes, they definitely did. And you go on, you have women's soccer, and Max, how about you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, women's soccer has started their season 0-3 after losses to Northern Illinois, North Dakota, and Southern Illinois, Edwardsville. Not a very good start for the women's soccer team.
Well, yeah, women's soccer 0-3, like you said, Max. Definitely a lot to hang your head about to start off this season, 0-3. But again, Summit League play has not started yet. Gotta wait a little while, and then we'll see how that all turns around. Just like we talked about women's volleyball. Last year started 2-1, ended up 1-15 in conference the next season. So conference play is really where it matters.
Yeah, I was about to say that conference play is where it matters. All this exhibition stuff, you consider that exhibition because these games don't really matter.
I'm going to be honest. I never really understood that because both soccer teams did play two or three exhibition games before they started the regular season. But really, none of these games really matter for your overall tournament seeding.
Yeah, none of these games are going to get you into the conference tournament. None of these games are going to count against you as the season goes along. It's where the conference, when you go into the Summit League, that's when it's going to matter.
All right, so going on a little bit more to Western sports. Remember, guys, last year when the Western football team started 5-1?
Yeah, we thought that they were going to go to the playoffs. We thought all these promising things, but then unfortunately they dropped their next 5 games and went 6-5.
Well, when you finish the season 6-5, you're not going to say to yourself that was a bad season normally. You'd say that's a mediocre season. You're still feeling good about it, but they missed the playoffs, ended, like you said, 6-5, and really did not work out all that well.
No, it did not. But in all fairness, this was Charlie Fisher's first season coming into the London football team, and now he's entering his second season, and there's some big changes coming to the offense. They're changing his defense. They're changing a lot of things about this football team to make sure that they make the FCS playoffs.
Yeah, I'm thinking they're going to have a pretty good season because they return a lot of their key players. They did lose 2 notable seniors, though, with Lance Noir and Joey Borsellino. Lenoir has actually scored twice for the Cowboys this preseason and has a pretty good chance of making that roster.
Yeah, but the main problem the Ludniks have right now is they have a huge hole in the wide receiver area because they lost 2 key pieces in the wide receiver depth chart, and I don't know how they're going to play such great bases in that organization.
It'll be interesting, but I think McGuire can lead that group to be pretty successful.
Well, you also have Steve McShane in the backfield for Western Illinois. We know how he started a year ago. He slowed down as the season went on, but definitely a 2-sport athlete, plays baseball as well, has all the tools to be a successful running back. We saw it a little bit last year, and him and McGuire may be able to lead this team to the playoffs, as they missed it last year. If they can do that, really good things could come for Western Illinois.
Yeah, and now we're going to mention this, that the first game is this Saturday at Texas Tech at 6 p.m., but you won't see the Lennox here in Macomb until September 30th due to that Coastal Carolina switched to FBS and due to some sort of rules that FCS can't host FBS teams.
I'm sure you meant Tennessee Tech on that, not Texas Tech.
Sorry, Tennessee Tech.
Well then, guys, one thing that we do need to discuss. Obviously, winning the conference is the main goal in football. The FCS doesn't have bowl games. There's not anything like, you get a trophy if you win one game in the postseason. This is a tournament. A lot of teams do make it. What does Western have to do to get them into a position to really,
Win conference?
Well, to get them into a position where they're comfortable and have not an easy road. It's never an easy road, but not a situation where they're the last seed playing the number 1 seed.
I think they have to win at least 8 games to be comfortable in the playoffs.
And I think you need both sides of the ball to perform their best. Because last season, it was always one side of the ball played good, the other side did not. They need both sides to play well this whole entire season. Because this defense is returning most of their starters, but the offense, not so much.
Well, I know that this season their defense has a player that...
Brett
Taylor, who is possibly going to be drafted in the NFL draft this upcoming year. Obviously, I say possibly because it's so early. Anything can happen. We always know how football works, injuries, all that. But Brett Taylor does have a legitimate shot to make an NFL roster. Lance Lenoir Jr. had an outside shot, but look at him now. He's performing well for the Dallas Cowboys. So if Brett Taylor can have a phenomenal senior season, who knows what he can do to help the Western Illinois Leathernecks make it to that tournament and possibly win conference.
You're absolutely right. But I'm going to stress this enough. The defense, they need to step up because they're returning starters. The offense, they have some huge holes in wide receiver. And we don't know how they're going to play Lance Lenoir. I don't know how they're going to play Joey Borsellino. But there's ways. You have Steve McShane, like you said earlier. They have Steve McShane in the backfield. They have Sean McGuire, so they're my quarterback. But most of those guys, they're seniors.
Well, yeah, and obviously after we see them play Tennessee Tech on Saturday, we'll have a much different feel for what they're going to do in this upcoming season. But anyway, remember, Macomb, we will be right back with some Major League Baseball right after this. And welcome back to the Hot Seat. Hope you enjoyed that PSA. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit about professional sports, Major League Baseball, and, well, we've had an entire summer to not talk about it here on the show. A lot has happened this summer. I believe that when we went from our freshman year into our summer, we believed the Cubs were going to be the best team in Major League Baseball. We thought that they were going to be an unstoppable force, and, well,
We thought wrong.
we definitely thought wrong. Yes, the Cubs are 11 games over 500, but going into the All-Star break in July, they were 2 games under 500. They were 5.5 games back in the division behind Milwaukee. The Milwaukee Brewers were in first place. Of course, the Cubs have a little bit righted that ship. They're 3.5 now up on Milwaukee, 11 games over 500. St. Louis is 5 games back, 5.5 games back, and the Cubs are looking good. But before we get into Cubs baseball, how about we talk a little bit about the main story in baseball this season, the Los Angeles Dodgers. What are they doing?
They're doing everything correctly. In every facet of the game, their offense has been unbelievable. Their pitching's been even better, and their defense has been solid as well.
And they got one key upgrade, actually 2 key upgrades, in getting Yu Darvish and Curtis Granderson. And
Well-
that's huge for that team.
Well, we know Yu Darvish, when he was able to make the team, Yu Darvish, when he made the team, he got traded. But either way, Yu Darvish, when he was first joined the Dodgers, 10 strikeouts his first outing, had a phenomenal first outing. Now he's on the disabled list, which, I mean, can we really say we're all that surprised about it? No, you can't really say that. You go on, you look at Clayton Kershaw, who will be returning to the rotation this week, way ahead of schedule compared to what a lot of people thought. They thought it would be more mid-September, late September, waiting for the playoff run. But here's a question for both of you. Bringing Clayton Kershaw back this early after a bad injury, is that a mistake?
I think that is a big mistake, especially because they have just a huge lead in their division. I don't see the point in bringing him back right now, and they could keep his process slowly until mid to late September.
Well, you said a huge lead. Here's just an example of that. The Arizona Diamondbacks are second place in the NL West. They're 18 games behind the Dodgers, and they're the number 1 team in the wild card race. And you really think about this. This is not the American League wild card race. This is the National League wild card race where teams are actually over 5 games over 500. We're going to talk about the American League wild card race because that's one of the most exciting things coming up very soon, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But why? What is going on? I mean, they're on pace to win like 113 games.
They're on pace to even pass the 2001 Seattle Mariners record of 116 wins and 43 losses.
And just on a quick note on that, they have lost 3 games in a row now, but their record is still 91-40. 91-40. You look at a team finishing the year with 91 wins. They're probably going to make the playoffs in some capacity. Now you look at the Dodgers. They still have 30 games left in the year, and they're 91-40.
But the one key thing to mention is that the 2001 Seattle Mariners did not make it to the World Series. Even though they had such a great record, they're the hottest team in baseball, didn't even make it to the World Series. So that's the one thing the Dodgers have to fear. That's the one thing they have to fear is that they got to remember what got them to the playoffs, what got them to win hundreds, whatever games they're going to win. They have to remember how they got there, how they did it, and if they do that, then they're easily going to win the World Series.
Well, we remember that storyline last year with the Cubs being the best team in the league, and yeah, the Cubs had 103 wins. Again, the Dodgers only 12 away from that here in late August, but the Cubs were able to win the World Series. Very rare for the number 1 seed in a playoff, especially for Major League Baseball to actually mainly for Major League Baseball, because you see the Patriots being the number 1 seed winning that. You see Golden State, Cleveland, all those situations. But you watch the Dodgers. Baseball's the one sport where really anything can happen.
Baseball and hockey, to be fair. Those are 2 sports that anything can happen. And going back to what we're talking about, Kershaw, all those guys, here's another problem they have. Is their health. Not just for Darvish, not just for Kershaw, the whole team. Because most of those guys have landed on the disabled list at some point in the season.
And before we move on, a couple of people we haven't mentioned, I'm sure we'll be mentioning them in later weeks. Cody Bellinger, Justin Turner. These guys Justin Turner we already knew, consistent. Cody Bellinger, a rookie, we'll get into him probably in another week, but it's been unbelievable. And going on now to another part of the West, but this time the AL West. The Houston Astros, going into the summer, again, well in front of their division. They still are well in front of their division, but they're not all that dominant in the AL anymore. Carlos Correa went down. Dallas Keuchel was on the DL for a while. He came back. He hasn't been exactly the same as what he was before the DL stint. The Astros are 79 and 52. You just look at the Red Sox, who are first in the AL East. They're 75 and 57.
I have a quick question for you, Connor, since you are the baseball guy. Do you think the Astros not doing anything in the trade deadline, not making any moves specifically in their pitching rotation, is that going to hurt them coming to the postseason?
I'm going to say yes. They had an opportunity to go out and get Yu Darvish. They had that opportunity because Texas was tanking. You never really use tanking for baseball, but Texas was selling at the trade deadline, obviously. They had the package in their farm system, the Astros did, to be able to make this a very similar deal to what the Los Angeles Dodgers did. And the Astros didn't go out and do it. So now you have Dallas Keuchel, but once you get past the first two starters in that rotation, you got Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton, former Pirate, he's a good, solid 4-5 pitcher, but really, I don't see all that much depth. And if they were eliminated, if they don't win all 3 games in their first series in the ALDS, I think they might be in trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to be somewhat like the Nationals last year in the playoffs. Their offense going to carry them in, but then I don't know if their pitching is deep enough to win them more than 2 games.
But there's still a chance that the Houston Astros do land Justin Verlander. There's still that chance.
Yeah, but is he enough to carry them to the World Series?
He won't be enough, but he'll add chances to that. I won't guarantee anything, but he will improve your chances of going to the ALCS, even the World Series.
Depends if you get the good Justin Verlander, though.
Even though Justin Verlander hasn't had too much of a bad season, even though his numbers do say differently, but I feel like he could turn this Houston Astros team around. Not saying they're going to be a guaranteed World Series bet, but I'm saying that he will improve their pitching rotation and overall team capability.
Well, we did talk about that waiver deadline, and we'll find out if he is going anywhere tomorrow. August 31st is the trade deadline for waivers. So there is it's like a mini deadline for Major League Baseball, the waiver deadline. And we'll see if Justin Verlander does end up going anywhere tomorrow or today. It could be either day. A lot of other names. Giancarlo Stanton is on there. We'll see where he goes. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. The odds are, I heard, maybe San Francisco, who's not a playoff contender. But that's what I have heard through the grapevine of Major League Baseball. And you just go on a little bit more. The NL Central. Let's talk about that a little bit. You know, our bread and butter, Chicago Cubs in that Central Division. The Cubs, again, said it, 3.5 games up on Milwaukee, 5.5 games up on St. Louis. They finally seemed to turn it around. They made a huge trade acquisition in Jose Quintana, who looked to be Jose Quintana of old. He's kind of fallen apart a little bit. They made acquisition of Justin Wilson, Alex Avila. Really, the only guy that looks like maybe panned out was Alex Avila right now. And really, for the NL Central, what do the Cubs need to do to hang on to that spot with about a month left in the season?
They need their pitching to improve such greatly. And they need their hitting to be on a consistent level like it was last year. First of all, their pitching, so far it's atrocious. Going from relief pitcher even to their 3-4 starters, and Quintana and Lackey. Because those two guys have been hurting the Cubs rotation. Just Jake Arrieta has been doing great since the All-Star break. First half of the season, he was atrocious. Coming to the All-Star break, he looks different.
And I'm hoping once Lester gets off the DL that he can be the Lester of old, not the Lester of this season.
Does it worry you guys that Lester's had 2 outings where he gave up over 8 runs in the first inning?
Yes, greatly.
Granted, one injury, and I'm putting quotes up here because a lot of the time we saw this with Brett Anderson where he was struggling. They sent him to the DL. He hasn't been seen since. He's in the minor leagues.
He's actually been called up to the major leagues on the Blue Jays roster.
Oh, so he was designated for assignment, and now he is on the Blue Jays, so he took the Miguel Montero path, went to the Blue Jays. And really, John Lester, it worries me. It's really good to see Jake Arrieta performing. He was performing in the postseason last year, especially in the World Series, but really had a rough start to his regular season. Looks good now. Jose Quintana, we talked about him. Kyle Hendricks looks like Kyle Hendricks. He still has a much higher ERA than he did last year, but you got to remember he has less innings because of his injury. He's
less velocity.
Well, Kyle Hendricks and his velocity have never really been all that important. And it's good to see. We'll see how Kyle Hendricks improves. Mike Montgomery's doing a great job in that Cubs rotation. He won't be there for the postseason most likely. John Lackey's improved. I'm still not a big fan of him. I'm not sold on John Lackey. And it's really hard to be when he's 39, 40 years old.
I have a quick question for you. If the Cubs do make it to the postseason, would you rather have Mike Montgomery or John Lackey in that number 4 spot in the rotation?
Well, I think
The thing is Lackey going to start in the postseason, or are they going to give it to Quintana?
They might do what they did to Jason Hamill and just say they're going to cut him. They can part ways with him.
I don't think they're going to do that to John Lackey. I'm very happy if they do that and they just put him on the bench and he can't play. But I don't think they can do that to a veteran like John Lackey. I think they're going to probably go with a 4-man rotation in the postseason. And if they're down 2-0, they might skip Lackey in the rotation and put in Lester Arrieta. But I really don't see them benching John Lackey going into that playoff run. But one other thing that I think we do need to talk about a little bit, and are we all going with the Cubs to win the Central?
Yes.
If the Cubs pitching is consistent and improves, if not, the Brewers will take it because of their power hitting. They came out of nowhere. The power hitting led them to where they are right now. Their pitching, not so much. The only thing they got is Zach Davies, but if the Cubs relief pitchers do a great job, they will be in the postseason. If not, the Brewers, you'll see postseason baseball in Milwaukee.
And what a surprise that would be, and the Cardinals you never can forget about. And last thing regarding Major League Baseball, there's a couple of things down the road with some news, but I just want to get your guys' opinion on this. So obviously Hurricane Harvey going on in Houston. It's over, but all the damage is going to be there for a while. Houston and Texas, the Rangers have had a series, and now they're playing in Tropicana Field. Texas offered to let Houston play at their home field, but Houston declined that, didn't want to play 19 out of 21 games on the road to end the season. Do you guys understand that, or?
The whole point was that the Rangers offered the Houston Astros to play all 6 games in that series in the Rangers Stadium, and Houston totally declined that.
Which I can understand because baseball is a business. Obviously, they're impacted by what's going on in Houston. I can understand that. Going to Tropicana Field, I think that is a good medium. Remember a long time ago, 2008, Cubs-Astros played in Milwaukee. Carlos Zambrano threw a no-hitter. But I do kind of understand that. I understand where Houston is coming from. Don't want to play 19 out of 21 games on the road in this home stretch. Granted, they're pretty much a safe bet on top of that AL West, but not necessarily a safe bet to get that number 1 seed in the AL. We'll see how that works out, but do you guys have Houston going to the World Series?
No.
I want to say that it's too tight of a race to determine who's going to go in the World Series from that division.
If they don't make a move by tomorrow, I am pretty confident that they're not going to make the World Series.
And one last thing, and I'm only going to take about 30 seconds on this for anybody paying attention to the AL wildcard race. The Yankees are in first. They're 2.5 up, but then you got the Twins in second. The Minnesota Twins, who were sellers and buyers at the trade deadline. It was actually really strange. They did a little bit of both, like they couldn't make up their mind. You got the Angels a game back, Orioles a game and a half back. The Orioles were criticized for not trading anybody at the deadline. Now they find themselves just a game and a half back in that wild card run. And then you got teams like the Mariners, Rangers, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Blue Jays, even. I'm not going to go any deeper than that because the Blue Jays are 7.5 back. But really, this AL wildcard race is up for grabs, and it's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, it should be very, very exciting. I hope for my Angels to get into that final wildcard spot to beat Minnesota, but I don't think it's going to happen because the Angels' pitching is not too good, and Minnesota really came out of nowhere.
And you got to remember, Yankees are only 2.5 up and 3.5 up on the Angels. So the Yankees still have a chance not to make it with Aaron Judge struggling so much. But we'll see how that all unfolds. And Kyle, since it is a morning show, we got to let our viewers understand a couple things about the world. What's going on in the world right now, Kyle?
We'll keep you up to date with what's going on in nationally, world, and we'll give you some entertainment news and check on the weather. So national, as you all know, Tropical Storm Harvey made landfall at Houston and is now going right towards the Louisiana area, and he will continue going inland towards Ohio. But as it starts moving inland from Houston, rainfall totals from Houston are about 49 inches, and damage totals could exceed $20 billion. And if you want to help donate, Texas Governor Greg Abbott recommends to donate through the American Red Cross, and you could go to that website at redcross.org. And in world news, reports surfaced Monday that North Korea launched a missile over Japan. There were no reports of damages, however, but now there are reports surfaced Tuesday that the country is still looking to target Guam. And in entertainment news, just in case that all of you guys were watching Game of Thrones Sunday and you missed the MTV Music Awards, Ed Sheeran took Artist of the Year. Had a great summer. Had a great year, actually, from this past weekend. And Khaled, new upcoming guy, he took home Best New Artist. And Kendrick Lamar takes home Best Hip Hop Video. And for the weather for today in Macomb, we can expect mostly sunny skies today with the high going up to the 80s possibly. Then tonight we can get down to the high 50s. And on Thursday, there's still that 50% chance of rain, but the highs will be get them to the 80s and then drop it down to the mid-50s that night. And then on Friday, we'll be seeing mostly sunny skies with temperatures going up to the upper 70s.
So we got to be excited for Friday. Good weather. Labor Day weekend starting off. Have fun on Labor Day weekend. But we're going to take a quick 30-second break, and when we come back, we got our very special interview. Jeff Joniak, play-by-play man for the Chicago Bears. That's coming up next. Back here on the hot seat, and we, as I said, have a very special interview here. Jeff Joniak, play-by-play man for the Chicago Bears, and that's going to be coming up right here. A lot of questions for Jeff, and if you're ready, here we go.
All right, so obviously there was a lot of, controversy with the second pick of the draft, Mitchell Trubisky trading up for the pick. Well, in regards to Trubisky, how did he perform at rookie training camp?
Well, it's hard to evaluate the off-season program because you're not playing in pads, obviously. So now that they're in training camp and getting ready for the preseason games, we're going to learn a lot more. But some of the attributes that scouts have pinpointed and the reason why he was going to be a top 5 or top 10 pick, regardless of who picked him, is that his accuracy is very evident. And it's just not completion accuracy, it's where he positions the football. So he gives receivers a chance to make a play after the catch. Really throws it in pinpoint areas, postage stamp throws. He's got a quick release, but he's got a lot to learn. He is a raw quarterback in terms of starting experience with just 13 college starts. He played in 31 games, but with all that pressure of a starting job on your shoulders, that's what we have to learn yet about Mitchell Trubisky. I know a lot of people in his life from the Ohio area where he grew up in Northeast Ohio. It's a football-crazy area. It's a blue-collar area, and he's a blue-collar worker. And I just want to amend one thing that, in your intro, because people, you just called it a controversy. To me, it wasn't a controversial pick at all. There was no controversy because, again, he was going to be a high pick. And I just think the way that it was taken by the media kind of trumped it up and made it seem worse than it was. Because in the end, all they gave up was a third-round pick for Mitchell Trubisky. While it seems like Kansas City had to give up a first-round pick for Patrick Mahomes. All the other quarterbacks, he had to get a first-round pick in return. So to me, it was a smooth move and one that was important for Ryan Pace, the general manager.
And does he have any chance at the starting spot, or is that Mike Glennon all the way?
Mike Glennon is the name starter, and it's his job to lose. He has been given the job, and by virtue of his experience in Tampa, he has not thrown many passes since the 2014 season, so he too is looking to make a second chance at a first impression, so to speak. And he's done a good job of leading the team at this point, getting players together, working with them in the off-season. And you never say never, but I think the plan is that Mike Glennon has a great season and Mitchell Trubisky waits his turn.
All right, and then moving to the defensive side of the ball. The secondary has added some new additions, Quinton Demps, Marcus Cooper, among others. They're establishing a young core on the defensive side of the ball. Could we be possibly seeing a return of the monster of the Midway?
That's way too premature, but obviously they'd like to have a defense that plays like that, physical, aggressive, be worried about playing you guys each and every week and feel the hurt no matter what happens in a game. That's Bears football the way they'd like it to be, but we do have a good chance for front seven to be highly ranked in that regard. They have multiple weapons in that front seven that can be rotated by Vic Fangio to create pressure. They created great pressure last season. They did a nice job in that. They just have to stay healthy, and they have a lot of veteran players still on that defense. So while they are trying to get younger, it is more of a veteran defense than it is a young defense at this point. Jarrell Freeman had a very good season at inside linebacker. Certainly Akeem Hicks is looking for another contract, so he's all dialed in. He had a very good year last year. But the key is you want to see those first and second-year players develop, guys like Leonard Floyd, Jonathan Bullard, Eddie Goldman, Kyle Fuller getting another chance at cornerback to make another impression. So you're looking for some young players to really step up and take ownership of that defense.
Okay, and then just a couple more single-player oriented here. Jordan Howard, after last year, he had such a great rookie season. What would you expect from him coming this year?
I expect more. You know, he didn't start till his fourth game, played in his second game. He was not active his first game, and you know, he had to earn his stripes with Jeremy Langford at that point. But when Jeremy Langford suffered a high ankle sprain that really ruined his season, Jordan stepped in and stepped up big time. He's a downhill thumper. So those guys are always known for getting tough yards, and that's exactly what he did in college at UAB and Indiana, and he did it in record fashion with the Bears, single-season rookie rushing record, and did things that, you know, few backs as rookies have done in the National Football, like he and Ezekiel Elliott, and the case to be made, he would have won the rushing title if he had played and started all 16 games the way he played on that offense, and on a team that struggled. So I look for big things from Jordan Howard. He'd like to score more touchdowns on those big runs. The Bears had a bunch of big plays last year, but they didn't finish with big touchdown runs or touchdown passes, so that'll be a big part of it. And they have a good complement of running backs. They got a good chance for Jeremy Langford to be healthy and give a change of pace with Jordan Howard, and Tariq Cohen, their draft pick, their fifth rounder out of North Carolina A&T, is going to be an exciting player.
And obviously Alshon Jeffrey is gone now. He went to Philadelphia. Who's going to be the face of the wide receiver corps for the Bears?
Well, that's yet to be determined. Kevin White, they'd love it to be. He's the 7th overall pick 3 years ago, but injuries have ruined his career to this point, limited him to just 4 starts. He started to come on in a couple of games against Dallas and Detroit. He looked very good in doing it, and then suffered another injury. So they'd like to see him come back to full form, and that means just like he ran in college at West Virginia. He was a 4.3 runner, and he was a thick body. He was a top receiver. Many still regard him as a top receiver, you know, potentially long-term, even though Amari Cooper was the first receiver taken in that draft out of Oakland, and he's had a big impact immediately. And things are still expected of Kevin White. We just don't know if he can get there. I think he has the talent to do it now. He has to realize his potential. But Cameron Meredith, coming off an injury in the OTAs, he injured his finger. He should be taking another step. He got a big impact as an undrafted receiver, and he's still learning on the job. They're looking to him also to be an impact player. And then a bunch of veterans have come into the mix. So Kendall Wright, Victor Cruz, these two guys are going to battle for that slot position. They both have had great success in their past, but have been dumped by their respective teams. And so this is another chance for them to make a big impact as well. And then Marcus Wheaton, he's coming off injury last season, suffered a shoulder injury in Pittsburgh, so his season was limited to just 3 games. He's got the speed that he's been missing at the outside. So it's going to be a conglomerate. Tight ends included, too. They've got a good set of young tight ends, and Zach Miller's coming back healthy. So it'll be interesting to see what they put together. Right now it's a hodgepodge of players, and they'll eventually round into what they're going to be in terms of their weaponry.
And just final question, just overall for the season. Is this another rebuilding year for the Bears, or do they have any chance of being ready for the postseason yet?
You never eliminate any postseason class. Every team goes to camp thinking they're going to go to the playoffs no matter what, because stranger things have happened. I think there will be one thing we learned about John Fox is that they play for him. Foxy can get a lot out of his players. If they stay healthy, I think anything is possible, and I never put a prediction in the preseason by any means because, you know, that first week 1 matchup against the Atlanta Falcons at Soldier Field, that'll tell me where they're at. You got to know where you're at health-wise as a team. That's a great equalizer in sports, obviously, and training camp does take a toll on teams, injury-wise, and just the chemistry. They're starting from scratch at the quarterback position. I'm not going to say it's a rebuild season because that would be disingenuous to every one of those guys that go to work every day thinking that they're going to win a Super Bowl. So I never say that about a team in the National Football League anyway.
All right, well, thank you so much for talking to me.
All right.
And that was Jeff Joniak. Guys, I think it's pretty exciting to have that on the show.
Yeah, I don't think anything like that has ever happened on the 88.3 The Dog ever in its history, really. such a prestigious guy on the radio show.
Okay, but one thing, I want to jump right into what he said. You think about the controversy. What he said, it was not a controversy to pick Mitchell Trubisky as the number 2 pick in the NFL draft after trading up for him. So Jeff Joniak really seems like he's confident in Trubisky. I think we all are at this point. We never really thought that Trubisky wasn't somebody, didn't have the talent. We were just worried because we didn't go out and get a defensive player in that first pick.
Which we needed.
And Jeff, I will be 100%. I've met Jeff in person once. I've talked to him now. I've interviewed him, and he's an honest guy. He's going to tell you the truth. He said it's not a controversy. Do you guys agree with that?
I disagree because I think they should have went out and gotten a safety, but Trubisky has looked very solid so far this preseason, so if he plays like this in the regular season, I'll be pretty happy.
People were not mad about the Mitchell Trubisky pick. They were mad about how they got the pick because they felt like we gave up too much in order to move one spot up.
When the 49ers weren't even going to draft him.
Yeah. But it was not really, I would agree with Jeff saying it was not really a controversy. However, still to this day, making that kind of move, give up that many picks for one spot was not really that all good.
Well, you really think about it, and I think that all three of us did call it a controversy when it happened.
At the time, Bears fans were pretty mad.
Very mad, and of course, Jeff being a play-by-play guy, he's with the Bears all the time. He really understands the ins and outs of that organization, so when he says it's not a controversy, for me, I'm going to take him at his word and say it's not. He has faith in him. And we talked a little bit about some other things. We talked about Jordan Howard, how he's going to do this season. Second in rushing last year after not even being active in week 1. Obviously, he was behind Ezekiel Elliott, another rookie last year. Jordan Howard, any other year, probably would have got Rookie of the Year. But, of course, never can go against Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. You go a little forward into that. Jordan Howard, what do you expect from him this year?
Well, obviously we expect great things after his huge rookie season. We expect huge things out of this kid. Even though it's coming out of his rookie year, we don't know what to expect, but we want to expect better numbers than what he did last year. And this was last year, he did not start 3 games, and that was the beginning of the season. So imagine what the numbers were if he did start.
And I think the Bears' passing game is going to be better this year, so that's going to set him up better for more bigger runs.
But here's the question. Who is the number 1 guy for the Bears? Because our number 1 guy, Cameron Meredith, he did go down with an ACL injury. So now who's that number 1 guy?
Well, you look at their depth chart right now at the wide receiver position. Kevin White is number 1 on the left side behind Victor Cruz, or in front of Victor Cruz. Then you go to wide receiver number 2. Marcus Whedon's number 1 there. Then you have Kendall Wright and Braverman. Is it Daniel Braverman?
Yeah.
See, that's where you get back into the deep part of the depth chart, where you guys might know a little more about me than me. But either way, I think you've got to go with Marcus Whedon because I don't trust Kevin White. I don't trust him. I don't think you can put him at that number 1 position because he might be out after 1 minute in the first game of the first quarter of game number 1.
No, I'm going to disagree with you. I think if Kevin White does stay healthy, he will be easily the number 1 guy. Well, there'll be no competition for that.
Well, I do agree with you with that. I just don't know if he can stay healthy and stick with that number 1 spot, so it's a risk putting him there. We'll see how all that works out.
My question is for the wide receivers, do you think Victor Cruz steps it up this year?
Oh, he better be salsa dancing in the end zone a lot. Because Victor Cruz is a guy that I think we all can say exciting player to watch.
When healthy.
When healthy. A key word about a lot of these wide receivers. Exciting guy to watch. Definitely had a lot of success with the New York Giants. Eli Manning, one of his favorite targets, obviously. Odell Beckham Jr. really overshadowed everybody else in that wide receiver core. But Victor Cruz, is that who you think will end up being the number 1 wide receiver?
I don't think he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver, but I think he's going to pick up like a Julian Edelman role for like he does for the Patriots.
I'm actually going to do a dark horse here, actually. If Kevin White gets injured, the number 1 receiver will be Zach Miller. I'm going to tight end.
Well, we've seen that a lot in the past in Chicago. Greg Olsen.
Won the league. We got Rob Gronkowski. When he's healthy, he's the number 1 guy there in New England.
Wow, football and being healthy. It's always going to be like a combination that's probably never going to work.
It's never going to work in football.
Well, we'll see what Roger Goodell does in the future. And you go a little more onto this. So the defense, we got some secondary help. There's already been some injuries in the secondary.
One key notable injury is Prince Anukamara.
Yeah, he's injured already, and we didn't even talk about Cameron Meredith's injury on the offensive side, but he's not going to play this year. Well, we mentioned it, but we didn't really go into depth with it. We're not. The point is, he's not going to be part of the season this year.
No.
And defensively, you said it, Prince Anukamura.
He has a ankle. I think it's some lower body injury. I know that for sure.
Do you know how long he's going to be out?
I'm not sure yet. I don't think they released that yet.
Well, we'll see how that all works out. And with the defense, the D-line improving every year. We have Lamar Houston now. We've had him. But a lot of things need to change. And I asked Jeff Joniak, is this the season for the Monster of the Midway to come back? He said that is way too premature.
And what makes that premature is that the defensive backs are not developed yet. Kyle Fuller, he's not really that was hyped up to be. There's still huge holes in that defensive back area. We don't have a for sure safety. We don't have for sure cornerbacks. That's why people wanted Jamal Adams taken at the number 3 spot instead of Mitchell Trubisky. But if you look at the front 7, that is solid.
I think their front 7's top 5 in the NFL.
I wouldn't say that yet, but they're pretty much up there.
And one other thing that we really haven't talked about that much, because it's kind of a underrated aspect of football. It's really not once you go into the people that really go in depth about football, but you look at the offensive line for Chicago this year, and I know we went to the defense, but just looking at the depth chart this year, you have Josh Shitten, Cody Whitehair, Kevin Long, Bobby Massey. They've got some talent.
And then you got Leno Jr., who was extended this couple weeks ago. He got his contract extended, so he'll be with the team for the next couple of years.
And one huge thing that was announced last night, John Fox has announced that Mitchell Trubisky will be starting the final preseason game in his hometown of Cleveland. Does this mean he will be the starter, or does this mean they're giving him a last chance, or are they giving Mike Glennon a rest before the regular season begins?
I think they're going to give him one last look, hopefully with the number 1 guys, with the number 1 receivers, number 1 offensive line, number 1 with Jordan Howard in the backfield. They want him to be prepared to start with the team.
Well, the depth chart was pretty concrete for the first 2 weeks of the season. Now,
The first 3 weeks, maybe.
3 weeks, yeah. Now John Fox says that they're evaluating the quarterback position, meaning that Trubisky has a chance to be the starter week 1. And I think all 3 of us would like to see that happen. I think all of Chicago, the Chicago Bears fan base, would like to see that happen. Because Mike Glennon, I'm going to say it right now. Look, if he wins us a Super Bowl, I'm not gonna complain.
That'll be a storyline.
It will be a storyline that we are definitely gonna have to talk to Jeff again about. But if he can somehow win the Super Bowl, that's one thing. But I think that signing Mike Glennon was one of the biggest mistakes the Bears front office could have made.
Well, first of all, are you surprised that they made this mistake?
No.
The Bears front office paying a backup quarterback $40 million to play 2 seasons. Are you surprised by that? No, that's your answer. But when it comes to week 1, who will be at the helm as starting quarterback, I think it will be Mike Glennon, even though Trubisky has had a great preseason so far, barring anything that happens week 4 of the preseason. But right now, it is Mike Glennon's job to lose.
Okay, Jeff said that as well, and you really think about it. You think about everything that we've really assessed here. Final record for the Bears, Kyle.
I'm going to go with... I want them to do bad. I'm not saying this because I hate the Bears. I want everything bad about them to happen. But I want them to get the number 1 pick to get someone to help in the defensive back area. But my heart tells me it's going to be a 7-9 season for the Bears if Mitchell Trubisky starts.
I'm going to go 6-10.
And I'm not going to do what I did last year on former show, The Sports
Could be
Bite.
16-0.
I said 16-0, 15-1, 14-2. You know, we don't need to talk about that all that much, but I'm going to go with 8-8. I think the Bears are going to be a pleasant surprise, and 8-8 is not going to be pleasant for Chicago fans. But what I mean is they're going to be better than what people think they will be.
They'll be better than last year. That's for sure.
They had the worst record, the worst season in franchise history last year, 3-13, for a franchise that's been around a long time.
And quick question before we move on: do you think this will be the last season we see John Fox as head coach for the Bears?
If we end anywhere below 4-12, yes. If we end anywhere above 5-11, no.
I'm gonna say this probably if there's gonna be no postseason for the Bears, then it's gonna be done for John Fox. That's the mindset for the management there.
Well, we'll see what happens there, and we know that we've had a lot of coaches since Lovie Smith. We'll really see how all that works out. And we're gonna go to another sport, the National Basketball Association, the NBA. A lot of stuff has been going on there. One main story, and I'm going to let Max take that away.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that the NBA offseason has been pretty crazy, but the biggest trade of this offseason was between the Celtics and the Cavaliers, and the original trade was that the Cavaliers get Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, and the Brooklyn first-round pick, which will likely be top 5. The Celtics, all they get is Kyrie Irving. But as of last week, Isaiah Thomas had difficulty passing his physical because of a previous hip injury, which happened against the Cavaliers in the postseason. So the Cavs were pretty adamant about trying to add someone else, and reports were saying that they were going to go for Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. The Celtics shut that down real quick because the Celtics have already given up a lot for Kyrie, and so for them to decline that, I think, was very smart of them. And as of a couple days ago, the Cavs have said that they will not try to change up their trade, and they are in the final stages of completing the trade right now. But if the Cavs are still adamant about adding someone else and the Celtics decline, they still can void the trade, which I think would be a mistake because, I mean, pretty sure at this point, we all know Kyrie doesn't want to go back to Cleveland. And we know Isaiah Thomas does not want to go back to the Celtics after being super loyal to them and then having them trade him just like that.
I remember when that trade happened, social media blew up about that trade because no one expected it. It was like hush-hush about this whole deal until it broke. But if the Cavs do void this trade, it'll be stupid of them because they're getting so much in return for Kyrie. Kyrie does not want to be in Cleveland, that is for sure. Isaiah, he does not want to go back to Boston after what happened, that is for sure. But Cleveland's getting, like you said, the Boston pick. That's probably going to be a guaranteed top 5. And then you're getting Jay Crowder, who is not a bad defender.
And not a bad shooter.
And not a bad shooter either. And then you're getting Isaiah Thomas, who's also a pretty great shooter.
Well, I think Jay Crowder is definitely an underrated player, and he has the talent, and that's a very important piece of this trade. We don't know all that much about Ante Zizic.
Big man.
He's a big man. That's really what we know. Isaiah Thomas, nobody knows about. Just kidding. Isaiah Thomas is definitely the main piece of this trade. And you're right. Isaiah Thomas, really loyal to Boston. And one of the things I found ridiculous was that Boston fans were burning his jersey.
That got traded.
He got traded. This isn't any Kevin Durant saying, oh, I'm going to go win a title, which he did, so
Or
props
LeBron,
to you, Kevin.
Or LeBron going South Beach.
So it's not the same thing. So, Boston, if you're listening, don't burn this jersey.
How are you going to unburn it if they void the trade?
Yeah, you just got to piece it back together. I don't know, Max. That's a very good point. But here's the question. Cavaliers, with Isaiah Thomas, are they better or worse off with these new additions?
I think they're better off because they also got Jay Crowder. And if Ante Zizic becomes a surprise, then maybe that'll help the Cavaliers out big time at the center spot.
But the Cavaliers have to win this year because LeBron's leaving after this year. Isaiah's going to leave. Maybe he's going to leave after this year. Jay Crowder, he's not locked.
LeBron James is the definition of loyalty.
So basically, the Cavaliers, all they have to ride on is that Boston pick.
Brooklyn
pick.
So, pretty sure the Cavs are banking on Brooklyn being really, really bad, just like last year, and hopefully, from their standpoint, that they get Michael Porter Jr.
So now I got a question for both of you guys. Who won this trade? If it does get finalized, if barring Cleveland doesn't void it, who wins this trade?
I think the Cavaliers win if they win the title. If they don't, then they lose the trade unless Porter Jr. ends up being the next Kevin Durant and they get that pick.
We can all agree that in the Eastern Conference Finals, it is going to be Boston Celtics versus Cleveland Cavaliers. We can all agree on that.
A Las Vegas odds maker actually, and this just because we haven't mentioned the Bulls, Las Vegas odds maker actually has the Bulls having the worst record in the league this year.
Thank God, Michael Porter Jr.
Trust the process. But anyways, this is a tough one because Kyrie is going to Boston, obviously, but he's also teaming up with Gordon Hayward. Well, we don't know what to expect in Boston.
Well, that's definitely true, and I never mentioned who I thought won the trade, and I'm gonna definitely go with the Boston Celtics actually, because Isaiah Thomas has 1 year left on his contract. You mentioned a little bit about LeBron leaving, all these players leaving, so this is a 1 year window for Cleveland right now, and they won a championship, so they already got that out of the way. But I think that Boston with Kyrie Irving could be an extremely dangerous force because you mentioned it. A lot of people forget that Gordon Hayward's on the Celtics now. He's not going to a team that has just lost Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and Ante Zizic. He's going to a team that has a superstar already in Gordon Hayward. And it's going to be really interesting to see how all of that pans out. It's going to take a while to see how it pans out. It's the NBA. We'll see
We'll
what happens.
update you on that next week.
Yes, we will. The trade might not even happen. It probably will, but it might not even happen. And then we're going to go to some more notable sports news to wrap up this show.
All right, so for all you Mets fans, Yoenis Cespedes, he is out for the season with a hamstring injury. Not that it matters, really, because the Mets were not even going to be in the postseason contention.
Oh, Yoenis Cespedes, I want to actually ask you guys this. Do you think that he's too ripped? And I mean this seriously because he's had the hamstring injury before, and a lot of experts, especially on MLB Network, ESPN, say that it's because he's so muscular that everything's so tight in his hammies that is the reason he gets injured so much.
Sure, he is too ripped.
No, I'm being dead serious. I know
That
it's
could
kind
be
of a
a-
silly question, but
That could be a good excuse for why he is actually so injury-prone with his hamstring injuries.
I think that's something for sports science to figure out.
well, it was just a question, Max. But I do agree. Yeah, it's hard to be too ripped.
All right, moving on. The Lions, they did sign Matthew Stafford to a 5-year, $135 million extension, making him the highest player in the league, and he's the highest player in NFL history.
Oh, you mean 6-time Super Bowl champion Matthew Stafford?
No, I was talking about 0-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time playoff appearance, Matthew Stafford.
Wait, so that guy who was the pride and joy of Detroit.
He's the only thing. That's the only thing good about Detroit is Matthew Stafford.
Don't worry.
Miguel Cabrera.
You know what this
No.
means? I'm going to say it right now. 5 years, $135 million, 5 Super Bowls at the end of this deal, and because clearly he's better than Tom Brady.
Well, knowing your football knowledge and your such 16-0 Chicago Bears reference, I think you're right.
Just for the record, I was kidding about all those
And now
records.
moving on, the Kansas City Royals pitcher Danny Duffy was arrested Tuesday for a DUI, and that is not good for a Royals team that has been doing good the last few games. And that's just another blow to their such embarrassing stat of going score. Actually, quick question: did they end their score streak?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
They had a solo homer yesterday.
Okay.
It wasn't a grand slam, it was a solo homer, but it did the job. Kansas City, last season of real contention. We'll see if they can even get into that spot with the rest of the AL wild card, but right now Kansas City's not looking too good.
And our final news that we got for you, that all proceeds from the Cowboys versus Texas game will be donated to help victims of Hurricane Harvey. So last game of the preseason, all those proceeds will go straight to Houston.
And that is our show for this week. Just a quick preview for next week. We got more on Kyrie and Isaiah Thomas. We got an interview with Adam McGinnis. You Western fans know who he is. Current catcher in the White Sox organization, played for the Leathernecks for 4 years, has some records for WIU, was one of the best players in Western Illinois history. We will have an exclusive interview with Adam McGinnis next week, and hopefully there's going to be some more clarity in the Major League Baseball playoff picture. But for now, I'm Connor Fredland with Max Hess and Kyle O'Reilly. This has been The Hot Seat. Enjoy your Wednesday.